The Emerald Tablet. Chapter 14. The Sky Collapses. Though the clue with Orion hadn't turned anything up yet, at least it gave Benjamin hope he would solve the riddle of the keys of the hunter. The hunter he knew just had to be Orion. When the first Saturday rolled around, Benjamin could hardly believe it and almost regretted not having classes for the next 2 days. What am I thinking? He asked himself. Who besides Gary gets upset that there aren't classes on the weekend? Hey, happy birthday, Andy said to Benjamin, slapping him on the back. Benjamin stopped dead in his tracks. My birthday? Yeah, Andy said. Remember, comes once a year. You didn't forget, did you? Kind of, Benjamin said, but it's been a pretty busy week. Your birthday's the longest day of the year? Gary asked. How cool is that? Did you get anything? Benjamin held up the card he'd just opened. He read it and looked up. My mom says they set up a DNA credit account for me. She says I can buy whatever I want. I wonder if my mom set one up for me, Andy replied. Maybe I can buy myself something for your birthday. Or better yet, you can buy me something for your birthday. Don't count on it, Benjamin replied, laughing. Jack appeared in front of Benjamin's face just as he exited the massive double doors of the school. In an impressive display of self-control, Benjamin only jumped a little. Having the Nautical appear and disappear without warning was becoming more normal. Mind if I tag along? Jack didn't wait for an answer. No, of course you don't. I mean, why would you? So we're headed for the abilities trials, right? I love the abilities trials. I never miss them. At least I haven't in over 300 years. He smiled at the 5 students, then settled on Benjamin's left shoulder. You've been alive for 300 years? Heidi asked. 412 to be exact, Jack said. In fact, today is my birthday. Hey, it's my birthday too, Benjamin said. Tell me something I don't know, Jack said. You didn't tell us it was your birthday, Heidi said before Benjamin could ask Jack how he knew. I kind of forgot, Benjamin said. Andy had to remind me. How can you forget your birthday? Heidi asked. It's been a busy week, Benjamin defended, and I've been a little bit preoccupied with the keys we're supposed to find. Why are you so worried about them? Andy asked. We still have 7 weeks of summer school left. That's why, Benjamin replied, because we only have 7 weeks of summer school left. Somehow we have to find these 3 keys and bring peace on Earth in 7 weeks. Yet he could tell through the alliance bond that none of his friends, with the slight possible exception of Iva, felt any urgency to find the hunter's keys. So what are the trials like? Gary asked Jack. It's like a bunch of people getting up and showing off in front of each other, Jack said. But I'll admit it, I've seen it 305 times, and each year I'm amazed by something. So it's a competition, like we had in telekinesis class, right? Heidi asked. I don't think you really competed with Jonathan Sheehan, Benjamin said. I mean, it was more of like a slaughter, if you ask me. He, Andy, and Gary all started laughing. Iva scowled at them. Yes, well, nobody did ask you, so why don't you just shut up next time? Heidi smiled at Iva. Anyway, what are you laughing at, Gary? Iva continued. You let Sunita beat you, and we all know she isn't very good at anything except brown-nosing. She has a hard time lifting her napkin in the dining hall. Jack cleared his tiny little throat. Anyway, to answer your question, it's not really a competition. It's more like a show. Telligents with all sorts of talents get up in front of the crowd and show off, but we better hurry if we want to get good seats. The main arena was at the end of Moo Way, about a mile from the school. Spaced every so often were public teleporters with lines queued up to access them. Why don't more people teleport on their own? Benjamin asked Jack. Most people can hardly even teleport a block anymore, Jack said. Benjamin flushed. Though no one in the class had been successful yet, it still irked Benjamin that he hadn't been able to move the block. In fact, he'd even been spending some of his free time trying. Just when he felt like the block was about to move to his mind, his concentration would break. How common is it? Heidi asked. Well, for you regular Telligens, only about 1 out of every 64 people is able to teleport themselves, Jack replied. Of course, almost all Naugicals can teleport, so we hardly ever have to rely on machines. As they walked, Benjamin squinted up at the passing shops and restaurants. Just as he opened his mouth, Iva beat him to it. Why are all the shop signs in Russian? She asked. I would have expected them to be in English or something. They aren't in Russian, Andy said. Of course they're in English. Yeah, looks like English to me, Benjamin agreed. They're in any language you want, Jack answered. In truth, they're in ancient Lemurian. The symbols interact with your mind and create an illusion, which is good since hardly anyone bothers to learn ancient Lemurian anymore. Benjamin was so focused on trying to break the illusion of the signs, when he finally looked forward again, a huge arena loomed above him. They found seats midway up the bleachers with the grassy field area far, far below. In fact, it was so far below, Benjamin figured only maybe a super-telligent could hear or see anything. But before he could ask Jack about it, a hush fell over the crowd. A large holographic image appeared high in the air. Clear as day, it showed the rulers of Lemuria, Helios and Selene Deimos, larger than life, walking to their seats. They turned and faced the crowd, smiling and waving. As they sat down, applause broke out. Benjamin and his friends joined in with the crowd. "Welcome to the summer solstice ability trials," Selene Deimos said. She might as well have been speaking a couple of yards away from Benjamin, she was so loud and clear. "I'm pleased everybody could join us. We have taken the privilege of altering the weather slightly to provide for a more enjoyable day," Helios said. "It's raining today," Jack said in Benjamin's ear. "In fact, it's supposed to rain all week." "No, it's not. It's beautiful. I've never seen such a perfect day," Benjamin replied. "That's because we live in a giant dome," Jack said. "Normally they don't mess with the weather, but on special occasions it's permissible." "They can do that?" Benjamin asked. "They can change the weather?" "Of course they can do that. They're the rulers," Jack said. "Selene's especially good at it." "And now let the ability trials begin," Selene said. Applause erupted. "Are the Deimos twins going to do anything special?" Andy asked over the cheering crowd. "You mean other than changing the weather?" Jack said. "No, they normally don't expend their energy showing off for the population, just in case some kind of emergency comes up or something." The Telecaster had 2 heads, but that was only the start of the excitement. The first few acts of the Lemurian summer solstice ability trials were mostly for entertainment. A 3-eyed juggler warmed up the audience by juggling 16 balls. As he juggled, new balls teleported into the mix, but the rhythm continued until there were a total of 50. Done with the balls, he blindfolded all 3 of his eyes and began juggling flaming rings. The act ended when one of the rings landed on his head, burning his hair completely off. He quickly walked off the stage, regrowing his hair as he went. A group of identically dressed, synchronized, levitating females went next. They rose into the air and began a series of elaborate dance-type movements, just like synchronized swimmers. Benjamin found himself yawning and wondered how long the routine could possibly go on. He joined the crowds cheering at the end because he was so happy the act was finally over. 2 large men, introduced as Norisan and Gorosan, walked out into the center of the arena next. They looked alike and were dressed as sumo wrestlers. The holographic image disappeared, and the 2 men seemed tiny at the bottom of the field. Benjamin and his friends joined as the crowd booed, thinking the holographic display had broken. 3 rows in front of them, Ryan and Jonathan were throwing popcorn at the field. Although Benjamin was tempted to take the opportunity to toss the rest of Heidi's hot dog at them, he didn't. Benjamin squinted down at the 2 men instead. Ignoring the booing from the crowd, Norisan picked up a water bottle and took a long drink. He passed the water bottle to the other man, Gorosan, who also took a huge gulp and then tossed the water bottle away. The men walked 5 paces apart and squared off. It was going to be a sumo match. Suddenly both men began to grow. They grew and grew and grew until before long they stood as tall as the seats where Benjamin and his friends sat. "How in the world can anybody grow that big?" Benjamin asked. "It's the water they drank," Jack answered. "It hydrates their pores and allows them to soak in all sorts of things from the air around them in order to grow." "Amazing," Gary said. "That makes total sense. By keeping their pores moist, they're able to drink in the air and thus sort of inflate their bodies." "Exactly," Jack said. Benjamin and Andy looked at each other and shrugged. At least someone understood. The sumo match ended with Norisan nearly smashing into the crowded stands, freezing in mid-air just yards away from Benjamin and his friends. "And that's how we do sumo wrestling here in Lemuria," Jack quipped to Benjamin. "I was sure he was going to hit us," Gary said. "I knew he'd stop," Andy said. "Oh, really?" Iva said. "Then why did you spill your soda down the front of your pants?" Andy looked down at his pants. The front of them was soaked. "Benjamin must have bumped into me when he was trying to crawl under the seat." Benjamin shot Andy a wry look, but didn't respond. The next act was getting ready to start.